Hey guys, welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to be discussing Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, specifically critiquing the colonial influences that we find in the film.
So we're going to go ahead and start with the white saviorism of the film. If you guys have watched the movie, then you would know, as soon as Dr. Jones arrives in India, you have a whole bunch of people from the small town running to him.
Yeah, like kind of talking about how he's gonna save themselves from themselves, essentially. Something that I noticed, which I thought was very interesting, was that when he first gets to India, right, he's approached by like the people there, and is essentially kind of tasked with saving India from an own like demonized representation of their own culture. Essentially, the Thuggy cult is a group of people that essentially just like they kidnap the children of the village and like force them to like pretty much starve them, force them to do labor, and have like human sacrifices, and so clearly Indiana Jones then here is put in as the kind of white savior. He's framed as the only person capable of restoring order. I'd say something interesting that I noticed was that even though sometimes the attention would be put onto the Indian people there, the like quote unquote shaman there, couldn't speak any English, and so in order to understand him, they had to use Indiana Jones as a translator. So actually, while it seemed like the attention was being put on the Indians, it was really shifted back onto Indiana Jones during that. Another thing that I noticed about the importance of Indiana Jones and his character is the difference in the way he acts in comparison to all of the other characters. Like Short Round, for example. There's no depth to his character. We don't know what he wants, his beliefs, his goals. He's really there almost entirely as comedic relief. So in that sense, Indiana Jones is the only person with, any kind of depth in his character.
Yeah, and along those lines, Willie, her character, she's really just portrayed as a helpless woman who doesn't really do anything but get in the way. Her character doesn't really add much depth to the movie, and it kind of just paints a picture for Indiana Jones to come back in and be the hero yet again.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so in contrast to Indiana Jones and this like white savior character that he plays is the like exoticism that's found of India throughout the entire film.
Mm-hmm. As soon as they arrived in India, or I guess the richer part of India, as you could call it, they acted as if it was a brand new land. They were amazed by everything that they saw. They were amazed by the people, the clothing with all the jewels, and it really just showed their unfamiliarity with the land.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like the moment they step into India, it kind of distances India away from being like a real country with actual people, and sort of makes it seem more like a theme park. Like it just seems so artificial, within its depiction of the people.
Mm-hmm. And that's especially emphasized when we talk about the dining room scene. Now, this scene is very... When you think about the movie, this scene comes up a lot, especially with the topic of colonialism, and we'll insert the scene here.
Sneak surprise.
What's the surprise? During the dining room scene, they pull out like monkey brains that the Indians are eating and a big snake. And so that, by giving them more exotic food or food that isn't commonly eaten in the West, or really by anyone, you could say, it creates a distance between Indiana Jones and the Indian people, and it really portrays them as not humans, you could say.
Exactly, yeah. It paints a picture of them as like bizarre and uncivilized. And another thing I'd like to add on to this is we watched a YouTube video which kind of went into some more depth on this scene specifically. And so the background behind it is that Steven Spielberg, he wanted to kind of not poke fun at the Indians themselves, but what he originally intended was to poke fun kind of at himself, because he liked to pull these practical like pranks, practical jokes. It was said that, you know, he used to throw these like figures of spiders at his sister and stuff, but what he ends up doing actually is poking fun at the Indian culture. You know, they are the subject of the joke. So in the movie there's a lot of demonization of Hinduism, but also kind of like glorification of Indiana Jones through it as well. Like the shaman believed that Indiana Jones was like a savior, a hero brought to them from Shiva or something like that. But really beyond that, it mostly is a demonization of the religion and culture there.
Mm-hmm. For example, during all of the ritual scenes, the only time that they speak Hindi is during those scenes. And it's really used to portray the religion and the language as evil.
Yeah, I completely agree. It does really show it as this kind of evil, cultish religion, which it clearly is not. You know, it's a beautiful spiritual religion, but they kind of erase all this positive spirituality and instead replace it with, you know, a demonic, bloodthirsty culture where they, you know, sacrifice children and stuff. And there's this one character, I forgot his name, but there's a scene where he just pulls a heart out of this guy, you know, and something that I think they use to really push this demonization is the lighting in certain areas. You know, everything is really like mysterious dark or like lit red, and even like the clothing of the thuggy people is like it's all these shades of like red and purple, which are all like really associated with like evil and blood and stuff like that. And I think this especially becomes important when you compare the thuggy cultists with the British soldiers that came to help them, right? They're all so organized, wearing uniforms, and so neat in comparison to the thuggies, which use like bows to fight as opposed to the rifles that the British use.
Yep. And that also plays into the idea of the thuggy people being primitive. The British soldiers came to the rescue with their guns and with more advanced technology, you could say. Whereas throughout the entire movie, the thuggy people were only using bows as their weapons.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something present throughout the entire movie. You know, they're constantly depicting the villagers as like primitive and uncivilized, when in reality, you know, they're just like it's really more akin to just a different culture, you know, different practices, and not really, you know, uncivilization. Another interesting thing about religion is they kind of depict religion and Indiana Jones on like a binary. You know, they say religion is evil, whereas Indiana Jones then is this like good, purifying force. You know, he's like rational and modern, whereas the religion is depicted as like fanaticism and irrational, irrational and filled with suffering. All right, so now on to our like final reviews of this movie, right? I think, if you think about movies as functioning purely to entertain, it's a good movie. It's action packed and follows like a nice storyline. It's not hard to follow. It keeps you in your seat, like keeps you entertained. But the issue with the movie then comes with its representation of culture, and it's not even necessarily, the biggest issue isn't just the racism in the movie, but how it kind of shows this pattern that Hollywood likes to create, stories that are set in not in the West, right? But that's rarely actually about the culture, and rather it's just a depiction of how the Westerners in these non-Western countries become adventurous and heroic and carry the sense of morality with them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree. I also believe that this movie, while being super entertaining, has many issues that its audience, which I believe at the time that it came out, I know I can attest to the people in my life, a lot of them were children. They saw this movie, they loved it, they enjoyed it, and they didn't see the issues that came with it. And those issues that come with it that we talked about throughout this entire podcast, they form underlying opinions and beliefs about other people, specifically about Indians and Indian culture, and those beliefs end up shaping how people are treated to this day. So I think that while this movie is super entertaining, it does ultimately have a negative impact on others and how Indians are viewed.
All right, well, that's all we have for today's discussion. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our review of Indiana Jones.
Yep, thank you so much. Have a great day.